When I ask myself, what does this heaviness remind you of? I'm taken back into the deep structures of my brain. My amygdala worked hard to consolidate those memories of fear, and my body was conditioned as a survival response to react to that fear in the way that best served me back then. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Shafer, your host of Talks with Dr. Shafer. I'm so glad you're here. I'm a physician, mom, life coach, musician, author, publisher, and I'm passionate about using storytelling as a tool to help you reclaim your story and build your most beautiful future. Today, we have another short talk on Talks with Dr. Shafer. Make sure to subscribe to the show so you don't miss any of the amazing guest episodes we have coming up, as well as the informative short episodes. Today, I wanted to talk about reconditioning, neuroplasticity, fear conditioning, and how we can take back control over our responses. There it is again, my old friend, doubt. Doubt never really seems to go away completely. When my perspective was different, and I was always trying to solve problems that did not move me forward on the path to achieving my big goals, I was in disaster control fixer mode. I had to fix the situation to avoid feeling doubt, because failure was unacceptable, and doubt was, in my experience, the first step to failure. I felt shame that I felt doubt. Wait, shame for an emotion? What a waste of emotion. What a complicated mess of layer after layer of reasons why I felt stuck, out of control, and less capable than I truly was. Even just saying these words evokes a feeling of heaviness in my chest. Now I've learned to listen to these cues from my body and to ask questions of them. When I ask myself, what does this heaviness remind you of? I'm taken back into the deep structures of my brain. My amygdala worked hard to consolidate those memories of fear, and my body was conditioned as a survival response to react to that fear in the way that best served me back then. Doubt myself, accept what I was being told, submit, smile, and fawn. Those were the most effective survival mechanisms I learned to employ as a child. And as a young adult, I replicated the environment that would keep me utilizing the same survival mechanisms that I had become an expert in. Except they were no longer survival mechanisms. They were simply reactions. Because I was no longer a kid who didn't have a choice. I was an adult. I had agency, even if I didn't realize it. There were many forks in the road where I could have made a different choice, a difficult choice, for certain. But the option was there. However, I had been conditioned to respond, doubt myself, accept what I was being told, submit, smile, and fawn. And breaking conditioning requires intent, action, and consistent accountability. I pursued a helping profession, and during the training process, there were many opportunities where this conditioned reaction seemed to come in useful even. It was in line with what was expected of a female trainee, so it was reinforced further. But the older I became, the less the response made sense, and the more it hurt me, not served me. It wasn't keeping me safe. It was getting me further and further embedded into environments and circumstances that felt familiar, but not okay. And the older I became, and the more responsibilities I had to patients, to my children, to my friends and community, the more I came to recognize that my reaction was depleting me of the energy I needed to show up for the people and causes that were important to me. That these reactions were threatening my experience, not protecting it. And slowly, despite the deeply ingrained conditioning of my brain and nervous system, my body started to give me a different warning. My nervous system's response was evolving. After nearly 40 years of responding to conflict and stress, like the little kid without agency who had to please an unpredictable and critical caregiver who was responsible for my entire well-being, my body had had enough. My body was sending a consistent message. This response is not sustainable, and it needs to stop. The feeling of having a pit in my stomach in the afternoon, when I knew that there would be a person in my environment that made me feel unsafe, became impossible to ignore. My nervous system was sending louder and louder messages to me that things needed to change. It took the severe discomfort I was feeling to get me to finally consider abandoning my old conditioning. Doubt myself, accept what I was being told, submit, smile, and fawn. For me to finally start to work on incorporating new language, new beliefs, and finally, new responses. Trust myself. Listen to my body. Stand up for myself and what I know to be my truth. Stop smiling in the face of my demons. Don't placate and give away my autonomy. Make decisions. Say no. Stand my ground. Thanks to neuroplasticity, to the ability of my nervous system to heal, to learn, and to adapt over time as needed, I could take back control over my responses so that my body wasn't being consistently hijacked by stress hormones and maladaptive coping mechanisms. Overcoming nearly 40 years of conditioning didn't happen overnight. It took a lot of work, a lot of attempts at new behaviors that failed and needed to be retooled and refined. It took a lot of self-discovery and understanding the heart of why my responses were what they were and why they didn't work anymore. They'd only worked to survive in a very specific environment when I was a defenseless child, whose only real job in life was to maintain my caregiver's love and positive attention so that I had what I needed to survive. Because as a young child, I was keenly aware that my older siblings, who had stood up for themselves even on the rare occasion, had fallen hard out of favor and had been abandoned. The high potential for abandonment and being vilified by my caregiver was very real to me and terrifying. And I worked hard to maintain and preserve my golden child status so as not to face a familiar fate. Understanding that at its core is incredibly freeing. It helps one understand why they behave the way they do without unnecessary shaming of the self for reverting to and relying on maladaptive responses. And assigning shame to the caregivers you are trying to pacify is not necessary in this process either. But neither is pretending like it didn't happen. Acknowledging why the behavior became a part of your relational repertoire allows us to simply understand our habits so that we can stop living in the past and start working toward a future where we incorporate healthier habits, which will, over time, through incremental steps, replace the old behaviors and lead to results that reinforce the positive behaviors, creating new feedback loops that aren't soaked in fear and stress hormones, responding for our betterment. Once we can make simple, small steps in our habits of how we relate to others, how we respond to a perceived threat, and how we move forward in relationships that require repair, we will reinforce these behaviors through each small success. These data points show our nervous system that this new behavior in fact works. It got us through the conflict without sacrificing our autonomy. And that is key to happiness for all of us. Learning how to uphold our autonomy is an important part of reclaiming our story and building a beautiful future that we truly deserve. Now, my old friend doubt will never go away. Like the color blue, it will always be there, just like every other emotion and every other color in the rainbow. But now, instead of reacting to it and letting it drive my response to a stressful situation or interaction, I can look at it with peace and curiosity and ask, why are you here? What are you trying to tell me? Because all of our emotions mean something. We don't have to let them drive us, but we do best if we acknowledge them. Once we acknowledge them, we can stay out of the fear-conditioned loop in our brains that respond to life or death threats. And we can actively remind ourselves that doubt is simply a part of us, but it's not all of us. That we can avoid danger in part by avoiding maladaptive responses to conflict driven by old fears. And we can keep that energy we would have lost in that cycle of fear to keep learning more about ourselves, to keep honing our habits and mindset and making strides towards the goals that we want to achieve. Thank you so much for being here, storytellers. I hope this short talk on Talks with Dr. Shafer was helpful. Please reach out at www.drshaferstedranova.com and tell us how you felt about the show. Share ideas for future episodes, concepts you'd like us to cover, or amazing stories that you want to have shared on Talks with Dr. Shafer. And don't forget to subscribe to the show so that you don't miss any of the amazing upcoming interviews we have with incredible people who have reclaimed their stories and are building beautiful futures. Thank you so much for being here. Until next time, stay safe and take care. I'll talk to you soon.
Everybody's lonely, but you can hold on to